me the second item that you indicated.
Item 26 and 27.
Prior to that, I'm sorry.
Item 12. So item 12 I'm putting on consent. That's
All right.
regional anti-trafficking.
Thank you. Any other comments or requests from members of the board? Let me look to the staff, see if there are any other changes to the agenda or consent calendar items. Colleagues, we have, actually I misspoke, we have 15 speakers now, and as you know, our rules do provide for 1 minute each when we have that number of speakers. 14 of the 15 appear to be with respect to item number 34, just so you know that your cards are here. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is call folks up, and if the item comes off consent, which it may, then I'm going to still allow everyone to speak now, since the item is currently on consent. And then when the item comes up later today, you will still be here, but you will only have had one opportunity to speak. I hope that was clear. So again, we want to make sure that we call everybody up now so that you don't have to wait if your schedule doesn't permit you to wait until the item is actually taken up if it comes off consent, which it may. All right? All right, let's ask... I believe it's Eric Coker to be followed by Donald Morehouse to be followed by Greg DeHaan to come on up. And if you just come to the podium right here in the center aisle, and as I say, even though it doesn't look like there's a microphone, it is built in, and if you speak right up, we will hear you loud and clear. And they're going to be followed so that they can get ready by Lee Witt, Doreen Payne, and Trevor Durchie. And I hope I've got those names right. Come on up, sir. Eric Coker?
Yes.
Welcome.
Can we give another time?
No, I'm sorry. The rules of the board require that each of you
Right.
just use your assigned time, please.
Okay. Well, then I'll skip saying thank you for you being the only one that replied to the emails. Okay. Today I want to make it real simple, connect the dots, since only mechanical engineering. I have no college degree. I rode dirt bikes. Third generation in a multi-million-dollar corporation. I used to be hyper. Well, I still am. Okay? Today it's ADHD. This is a sport, and with all sports, it gives you courage, commitment, training. This excels. This is the most physically demanding, most focused. You have to be focused. It helps. I'm bringing that up just to give you an idea that it is a sport that is unique. Okay? The venue that you're proposing, 408, to change. I have an email. There's questions on that email. I would appreciate a response to that email. I understand you're going to need time to do that. Okay? It's prudent to do so. It's a sport that requires mechanical aptitude. Okay?
And I apologize, your time is up. I do want to say for colleagues,
this is how the system works.
this is item number 34 on our agenda today on the consent calendar. And Donald Morehouse, I believe that's the name, yes?
That's correct.
Welcome.
That's correct. Good morning, and thank you for this time. Hello, my name is Don Morehouse, and first I would like to thank you for this time. My story about 408 is a short one, as I've only been riding motocross a short time, only about a year and a half, as a matter of fact. I'm older than most of the guys out there, but the track didn't stop me from wanting to learn the sport. And to be honest with you, it was a pretty frightening undertaking for an older guy to get out on a motocross track, as any of you guys could imagine, you're about the same age going out on a motocross track. The motocross community was very helpful and very inviting to me. In the group, in short time, made friends who helped me. And not only can I get around the track, but I can hold my own. I started racing amateur motocross, as a matter of fact, because of my time on the track and the friends I've made, and I'm proud to say I've even won a race. I tell you this because without it would not have been possible if not for Chris and 408 and everything he has done to make this possible, not only for me, a man in his 50s, but more importantly, the many young kids who locally aspire to pro ranks. As you know, this is our local track, and without it, we would have to drive hours to another track of this caliber to be able to train and do what we love.
Comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And folks, I know a minute is tough, but because we have so many speakers on the subject, that's what our rules provide for. Is this Greg DeHaan?
This is Greg DeHaan. I'm wondering what the threshold before my minute starts to which we move from a 1 minute format to from the 3 minute format to a 1 minute format. What is the number?
The answer, first of all, let me ask the clerk to reset the timer. Second, on the front of our published agenda, it indicates that when you get to 15, and greater, then it goes to 1 minute. So I misspoke earlier when I first said 14, because that would have been 2 minutes under our rules. Then before I corrected myself, we had one more person who submitted a card. That did bring the number to 15, and that's why the 1 minute is the rule.
We'll recuse that person from speaking, and we'll move forward with the 14 number at 2 minutes if we could.
I'm sorry, sir, it doesn't work that way, and the 15th person is not part of your group, even if that were the case. So those are the rules. What I would encourage folks to do is take a minute and talk amongst yourselves about who can make what kind of comments to make sure that you have an integrated message. I know it's tough with a minute, but those are the rules, and they're published, as I say, on the front of the agenda packet. That's
The rules we're functioning under are 14 people, but nonetheless, I'll move forward with a minute. Good afternoon, good morning, staff, board. We have a unfair rental practice that's taking place on a recreation facility, on a facility that was donated to the county for recreation purposes. Right now, we're running Odessa auto auctions on this site. It is not the intended use. It does generate revenue, and I understand dollars and cents as a businessman. But what we have here is a recreational facility that brings youth and families together in the original intent of the property. We need to continue that intent. If we need to make funds for the property, we need to come up with other alternative methods that we can generate funds that meet the original donated intent of that property. Mr. Still has had a rental increase from $6,000 for the property for $6,000 per acre. If that's not unfair, I don't know what is.
Thank you for your comments.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, Lee Witt, Doreen Payne, and Trevor Durchie, and they will be followed by David House, I believe it is, and Doug, I think it's Scheid, and then we have a blank one. So somebody filled it up but didn't put their name down. All right, and then Megan Jacobs. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you? So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things regarding 408MX. My goal, my dream when I was younger was to be able to become a professional motorcycle racer. I saw an event at Spartan Stadium that sparked my interest at 5 years old, and that track was instrumental and key in allowing me to become a pro. And my dreams literally came true. I understand inflation. I also understand terms, and I understand that Chris Steele met the terms that the Fairgrounds was asking. At that point, it was impossible for him to meet it. And then he found an investor last minute that met everything that they were looking for. And at that point, they said no and raised the rent to $60,000 a month. And on the Santa Clara Fairgrounds website, it says one of the most affordable places to showcase your talent. So if that's not congruent with that statement, or that is not congruent with that statement, and I appreciate your time.
I'm going to ask you to stay right there. I apologize again. Turns out that now, because we have one fewer card, because somebody turned in a blank card, we are back at the 14 threshold. When we're at the 14 threshold, 2 minutes applies, and so I'm going to follow the rules and allow you the 2 minutes. And anyone subsequently speaking is also going to be allowed the 2 minutes. For those of you who got cut off at a minute, yes, I will give you one more minute if you would like it when we get to that point, all right? And I apologize, but we just happen to be right on the threshold, and we have an unusual circumstance of somebody turning in a blank form. So you get another minute. Go to it.
Thank you. I also recall at the beginning of this meeting that you guys are very proud of the fact that you've contributed to open space reserves, county parks, things for the community to enjoy. And motocross is one of those things that we enjoyed. It's also, in a sense, a county park. And we would appreciate you guys putting in your pull and your influence that you guys have to keep this around. Motocross is a community sport. There's literally no way for a young man like myself growing up to become a professional. So talk about giving families a chance to create memories together, to be tightly bonded. Everybody's in it. There's no way for us to make it without them. It keeps us off the streets. It keeps us focused. It gives us something to look forward to. It gives us something to put our energy towards. And it provides a great family environment. My dad and I we've traveled the country doing this, and we've had great memories doing it. So we would love for you to keep what's important to us. We'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you again. Doreen Payne to be followed by Trevor Durkee. Welcome.
I'm not really prepared because I had 3 minutes. Basically, what I want to say is this sign says it all. 408MX is where communities can come together. It's multi-use. It's not just motocross, but it's quads, side-by-sides, and it's pet-friendly. It's family-friendly, orientated, and it serves all ages. I just would hate to see this go away because this is important to everybody. The guy that was just here speaking, his father is right there, and he started as a little kid, and then his father's there. We have grandfathers, children, multi-generations. I've been coming to the San Jose Fairgrounds since I was, I believe, 5. And I started riding Yamaha days, and my father took me there, and I did the flat track and the mile and the indoors and the motocross. And it's been a lifestyle. It's history. And if it was gone, there's no other place. This brings people from out of state, which brings in money for restaurants. It brings in hotels. It's very important for the community. And if you look at the data, it shows that it's pretty high on the list for what people want. So I'm just asking, even though I'm not a very good speaker, that to please to try to save our track.
Thank you very much, and you're doing just fine, by the way.
And I have extra time, so can David House use it? No.
No, but we are, as I said, going to give the next speaker, Trevor Durkee, 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to see, would you guys all like to see
You can give
this?
that to the clerk. I'm going to ask the clerk to take that from you and make sure that all 5 members of the board and their offices see it. So thank you for that. Trevor Durkee, to be followed by David House.
Hi, I'm Trevor Durkee. I'm a resident of Santa Cruz County and frequent visitor of Santa Clara County. By coming to the motocross track, like Lee, I had dreams of being a professional motocross racer, but I didn't reach those ranks. I don't have many Bible verses to say motocross should be here to stay, but it just provides a gathering place for the community. And I know for me, myself, at the age of 10 years old, I had to get a job to earn money for a dirt bike. It taught me hard work and responsibility and maintenance, and it also taught me a good competitive spirit that's helped me out to my professional age in my career. My understanding of the track, why it's closing, is limited, but I heard people talk about the increased rent, which seems kind of ridiculous. If you pull up the website for the Santa Clara Fairgrounds, right away it says Silicon Valley's most affordable and accessible venue, right? And then you keep going down, and our mission, provide Santa Clara County with a gathering place that showcases the community's gifts. Our vision, be the community's first choice for friend and family gatherings. Our master plan, Santa Clara County seeks community input on Fairgrounds Master Plan. We encourage you to get involved. So here we are trying to get involved and do what we can and take time out of our schedules to really fight in something we believe in that benefits the community and especially the youth. I can't stress that enough. Without motocross growing up, my community down in Southern California wasn't the best, but that kept me out of trouble. It kept my friends out of trouble. And I faced a similar situation growing up. We had a motocross track on a fairground, and we had similar things where it just seemed like they didn't want motocross to be part of the fairground, but the community constantly pulled together and saved the track. So I plead with you guys to do what you can and work with the fairground board to.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
David House to be followed by Doug Scheid, to be followed by Megan Jacobs, and if you could line up, please, that'll help us move along. Mr. House, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is David House. I'm a 50-year resident of San Jose, California. 408 MX has been a gathering place for over a decade for me and many of my friends. It's a place where we share our passion. It's a place where we gather. And it's such an athletically challenging sport that few really give it credit for. To get rid of 408, we would have to travel over an hour to Livermore. And for many of us, that's not feasible. So just having the track here has just been a blessing. I mean, in the heart of Silicon Valley, there's really no place else like it, you know, where we could have our activity, share our passion, and meet as a community of guys who ride dirt bikes and girls and families to further the sport and to just gather and share our community values within that sport. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Doug Scheid, to be followed by Megan Jacobs, to be followed by Miley or Milea Copeland. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Doug Scheid. I started going to the fairgrounds, to the motorcycle track and motorcycle racing back in the 90s. My father introduced me to the track and he introduced me to motorcycle racing. Since then, it's been great to have the fairgrounds have a motorcycle track where we could all meet and enjoy family healthy experiences. I've been showing my young one to the track and introducing him to competition and motorcycles. In the last year that he's been around, he's really enjoyed it, and we've enjoyed family togetherness and family healthy sport. To have it go away and to not have a place like that where we could enjoy the community together would really be a shame. If you could reconsider extending the contract and talking and negotiating with them, that'd be great.
Thank you for your comments. Megan Jacobs, to be followed by Miley or Milea Copeland, to be followed by Selena Copeland, to be followed by Julie Witt. Welcome.
Hi.
You seem to have some Copelands.
Thank you for having me.
Jacobses, one or the other. Welcome.
I'm Megan Jacobs, and I'm a resident of Santa Cruz County. And please don't bang that. This is Joey, and this is Mia. These are my children. And we use 408MX about every weekend. My entire family rides dirt bikes. Myself, my husband, my 2 stepdaughters, and Mia and Joey. He doesn't ride like a dirt bike yet. He rides a Power Wheel. But Mia's been riding a PW50, and they've both been going to the track since they were born. This is our sport. This is what our family does, and it's something that if the track were to close down, it would be devastating. It's like David said, it's an hour and a half to the next track. From Santa Cruz with bad traffic, it could be 2 hours, it could be 2.5 hours, and I worry that without this local track, we're gonna lose our sport. And I worry about children in the community and what's gonna happen to them. You know, like I'm not the only one with children that comes to the track, and I'm certainly not the only person that rides with the minis. There's 3 different practices. The minis are usually smaller riders, and there are children out there who can clear the triples. I mean, they're amazing. They're athletes who are training to do this professionally. And if this track closes, I don't know what's going to happen to them. Studies have shown that when kids don't have a sport or something to do, that they suffer, that they find other things to do. And sometimes it's drugs and alcohol, sometimes it's gangs, and I worry what will happen to the children in our community if they lose this track and this outlet. It's really hard to talk with a baby in my arms, so thank you for hearing me. Just please consider saving our track. I love how I'm able to role model to my daughter, especially, that women can ride motocross too. And yeah, it's a great sport. So yeah, thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Mia. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, now it's Miley Copeland, and then Selena Copeland, and then Julie Witt. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Malia Copeland. I've been going to this track for 9 years. My brother is the racer, but we all ride. But I'm the one that makes the cookies and hands them out, makes the birthday cards, or whenever anybody gets hurt, I make those cards. And if I don't have anybody to make cards for or make cookies for, I don't have anything to do when I'm at the track. I ride, my family rides. There's people, I have met a lot of families there, and most of the families bring dogs in, so it's a great place for families and kids and pets, and I will miss it if there's not a track there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I believe our next speaker is Selena Copeland, to be followed by Julie Witt and Mike Witt. And let me just ask folks if you'd hold off on the applause. As you can tell, it's sometimes daunting, a little uncomfortable for people to come and speak. And one of the ways we sort of keep it a safe place for everybody is not by having boos or jeers or by applause, so that everybody can walk up, feel like they're comfortable and welcome here. So I hope you'll understand. Thank you. Ms. Copeland, welcome.
Hi. So I'm a motocross mom. My son has been riding at the 408MX for 6 years. His goal is to go pro. He's a full-time college student, works 2 part-time jobs, and he practices 2 or 3 times a week. If he had to trek all the way to Livermore, this pro goal of his might never happen. So we really want to keep the track here. We know that motocross is very expensive already, and having to go somewhere far away even costs more. It's a family sport. Our whole family goes to the track, and all of us ride, and it keeps plenty of our athletes out of trouble. There's football, baseball, soccer fields all over San Jose, but there's one motocross track, and our athletes deserve to have a track that they can achieve their goals on. I had filed a PRA for answers about what they're going to do with the land. Nobody's responded to me. So I just wondered, what's the plan? I mean, why are we taking the track away? Why are we making it so expensive that we can't afford it? We really want to keep the track. It's a great place for our athletes. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Julie Witt, Mike Witt, and then Mr. Scott Largent. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for taking this. So my name is Julie. My son is Lee, that came up earlier, and he started in motocross about 14 years ago. He did become a professional rider, which was very exciting. And before he got into motocross, I had no idea how amazing this community really is. It really is a family sport. The whole family becomes involved. When we've traveled throughout the country, it's not just a dad and a son, or just the person riding. It's the entire family that's involved. And so to take something like this away from this community would be detrimental. We're just a small part of this community speaking today, but we represent hundreds, if not thousands, around this valley. We all know this is a very stressful place to live, and for my husband, working every single day throughout these last 30 years, this is a great outlet for him. He comes home with a smile on his face versus coming home stressed and depressed sometimes, with no outlet. So if you take this away, it not only affects the kids in this community, but it affects the adults. We all need somewhere to go to get an outlet. And the other thing is, because they keep raising the price, we found out that really they don't care. We met the requirements of meeting the monthly payment, but that's not what the real thing was. It was all about making more money and getting motocross out of the 408 or out of the fairgrounds. We need a lower monthly payment for the motocross track so more riders can come. It is a very expensive sport. So we're just asking you guys, pull for us, pull for this community. There's a lot of people that don't want to do soccer, baseball. They want to do motocross. And you're bringing kids into something that's very healthy. It does keep them off the streets. It gives them something to do, to focus on. And I know there's people in this community that have said, hey, this kept me out of alcohol. This kept me and made me a better person. So thank you for considering.
Thank you for your comments. That takes us to Mike Witt, to be followed by Scott Largent.
Hi, thank you for this time to be here. A little bit of background on me. I have owned a company here in the Bay Area for the last 30 years. I know what it's like to be in business for yourself. I know what it's like to run a company and to make all the numbers work. When we were first set up or went back to the board of the fairgrounds again this year to renegotiate the lease, they told us it would be a 10% increase in the lease, which at that point would have raised the rent to well over $7,000 a month for the property there at the fairgrounds. We met those requirements. And as we meet those requirements, then they came back and said, no, we want $6,000 per acre. Now, I've looked at the proposal of the fairgrounds, and they want more soccer fields and more baseball diamonds out there. Right now, there's plenty of room to have both of that. The soccer and soccer and the baseball diamonds, as well as the motocross track. Right now, they have trucks, big trucking companies storing their product out there, storing dirt out there, and they're still trying to get 6,000 per acre. I don't understand where they get the 6,000 per acre, but if they were to have baseball diamonds and soccer fields, how in the world were they going to generate 6,000 per acre for those events as well? So when you meet the requirements of a negotiation and they still refuse you, that means there's something else going on here. And we just want to get to the bottom of why they do not want the 408, the motocross track there. It is very much a family sport. I've watched my son go from not even riding a motorcycle to be able to learn how to set goals, to work hard and achieve those goals in his life. And those kinds of attributes will follow through to when he's an adult and further on in his life. So to take something like this away will hurt the community and affect thousands of families in the long term. And so we just appreciate your poll in this. We appreciate that you would help the fairgrounds make the appropriate decisions in moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then we have Scott Largent. Mr. Largent?
Hi. Good morning. Scott Largent. It's good public comments today, hearing everybody fight for the motocross track. I did not realize that it existed out there at the fairgrounds. It's kind of nice to know now. I hope it's not too late. That's something I would love to do with my daughter. Sober dad, and be able to take my daughter out there to the fairgrounds. I'll have to read a little more in the back. I like to see the community coming forward. I like to see things like, this seems really cool. I kept bringing up that the fairgrounds was a failure. This is stuff that makes it a success. And we're going to lose the ability to be able to do this. I guess this is the last track in Santa Clara County right now. When we were kids growing up in Saratoga, we had all these little Pepe bikes and these little CT70s, and we were all fascinated with everything. We had to run these things up and down the railroad tracks and up in parks we shouldn't have been at. This gives people the right place to go where they're not burning down half the city out there. And I think this is would be great for the public. I like to hear what everybody had to say. This seems like a real family-oriented thing, and I know you guys have been struggling with the fairgrounds out there, and it needs to be a low-cost option for people to go do the things that are just not available anymore. I mean, everybody's playing video games all the time now, and like that one gentleman said, baseball fields, soccer fields, there's nothing like that out there anymore. There's really not. And you guys can make that happen, even though it's already on the consent calendar. I know it's already kind of the decision's already made. But these people came forward. It was pretty impressive. I like to see that. It made me not even talk about the sheriff's department, It made me completely divert. They got me sold. So I appreciate everything. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Colleagues, let me tell you where we are. We have 3 folks who were previously limited to 1 minute. I'm going to ask each of them if they would like 1 additional minute. Before they come up, however, if I could ask just your indulgence, I misspoke. I was incorrect earlier when I gave the 3-minute, 2-minute, 1-minute rule, which applies to public comment. So that's on me, and I appreciate your patience with the first time in the chair presiding officer today. That being said, typically 2 minutes is what we provide on consent calendar, so that should have been the rule from the outset. That being said, our rules and the agenda provide for the ability of the chair to limit either the number of speakers or the duration. So I just wanted to run through all of that. I know that may make it more confusing rather than clearer because we have a fairly arcane set of rules here. But I did not want people to walk out of the room with the misimpression on the 3-minute, 2-minute, 1-minute rule. Should have been 2 minutes from the start, absent some effort on my part to curtail it in with the discretion of the chair. But all's well that ends well. We're just going to end up with 2 minutes for everybody. If Mr. Coker and Mr. Morehouse and Mr. DeHaan would like to come back for 1 more minute, then we're going to bring this item back to the board and ask what, if anything, the board would like to do. It could come off consent for further discussion today, or it could simply remain on consent for action as part of the consent calendar. Mr. Coker, you want to come on up? Welcome back.
Thank you. It's okay. You've only been in there for about 30, 45 minutes in that seat.
Seems longer.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So anyways, appreciate it. You've heard all the basic ideas. I was going to go down to mechanical aptitude. There's a lot of people that don't make pro as anything. There's that couple percent. But everyone else, they're still riding, they're still learning, and they're now your people that are running HVAC and all the backbone of the industry that runs this company. And what I was going to tell you, at 18, I was at Tandy Corporation. Okay, asked how old I was 18 years old redesigning the systems. That's very unique, and those are the people that come out of here. Okay, so with that said, there's some serious issues that need to be looked at this. Fairgrounds are fairgrounds. That's the county fair. Different venues can go in there all the time. It's not fixed. This is a dirt field. It's maintained very easily. There is no roof. There is no infrastructure. Okay, this reduces the cost and does not require a lot of rent. These are the things that the fairgrounds are designed for. Donated or not donated, think about it, put that in your head. Thank you.
Thank you again for your comments. Mr. Morehouse, to be followed by Mr. DeHaan.
I'm Mr. DeHaan. I don't see Mr. Morehouse. I appreciate you, before you start my time, taking back what is there and doing what's right. As a father who's greatly involved in city politics, I understand the process well.
Thank you.
Okay, my minute starts now. I'm here to represent a group of over 10,000 riders, Carnegie Forever. Also here as a representative and volunteer for youth in a program called Oasis for Kids. I'm also here as a parent who has 3 kids who ride and race. My kids are athletes. They're not derelicts. They're mechanically inclined. They would stop to help you when your tire's flat on your car, pick up your purse if you dropped it. Help any one of you people. We're raising young individuals who are responsible. We want to find an outlet for them to recreate in conformance with the original donation process of the land. We cannot have a $6,000 to $60,000 rental increase. We are paying, we are donating funds to your community through sales. We are good stewards of the community, and we've done everything to comply, and we hope that you partner with us in the future.
Thank you very much. Let me just ask one more time if Mr. Morehouse is still with us. He may have stepped away after his initial comments. All right. Thank you all very much. Let me just confirm with the clerk that is all the cards we have today. Yes, thank you. And colleagues, that brings us back to the revisions to the consent calendar, including our agenda order. We have the opportunity now, I think, to ask clerk to give us one more walkthrough on where we are with these, with the changes that have been referenced, and then, as I say, a decision by the board as to whether or not to leave this last item on the consent calendar or to remove it for discussion at the end of our regular agenda today.
Item number 15 was held to January 23rd, 2018. Item 16 is placed on the consent calendar. Items numbers 26 and 27 were removed from the consent calendar. Item numbers 39 and 40 were removed from the consent calendar. We have a request from admin to hold item number 46 to January 23rd, 2018. And we have a request from Vice President Chavez to remove item number 59 from the consent calendar to be considered before item number 12, and a request from administration to delete item number 13, and a request from Vice President Chavez to add 12 to the consent calendar.
And I think the one other clarification I would make is that Supervisor Chavez, if I recall correctly, you earlier indicated you were fine leaving items number 26 and 27 on the consent calendar, but with a request incorporated into the consent calendar action for information as indicated on the record to be shared with the entire board. Did I get that right? All right.
And we have a recusal from Supervisor Wasserman on item number 48.
All right. Board members, any additions or corrections to that list? And then if not, and I think we're good to go, then a question about how we will handle item number 34. And this is an item, by the way, I should mention, I had some questions in my office about why are we hearing about motocross when this is an FMC item, and the answer is because we had an FMC budget and business plan which previously came through FGOC, the Finance and Government Operations Committee. This issue was not raised there at that time. This item obviously affects the interests of the folks who've spoken to us today. So the question is, do we leave it on consent and take action, or do we remove it for some additional discussion? Supervisor Chavez, your light is on.
Thank you. What I would like to do is remove it for discussion at the end of the meeting, just because I want to ask a few questions, but I recognize this is the consent calendar, and I don't want to deviate from letting us roll with that
All right.
body of work.
Then, without objection, and it looks like that's agreeable to all members of the board, for those of you who are here for item 34, what that means is it will be removed from the consent calendar. So when we act on the consent calendar in just a moment, we will not be taking action on that item. And then it will come up where you see item number 19 on our agenda. It says, consider items previously removed from the consent calendar. This will be one of the items that was previously removed from the consent calendar. All right? Then, I think we are now at the point where I can ask the clerk to please post the voting panel on our screens on the consent calendar and agenda changes as noted. We have a motion from Supervisor Chavez. We have a second from Supervisor Wasserman. Let me ask you all to please vote on your screens. And if all members have voted, then we'll ask the clerk to tally the vote and display the results. And the consent calendar as amended passes 5-0. All right.
Mr. President, just Supervisor Cortese down here.
Thank you,
Can I just ask a point?
I'm not used to turning to the left to listen to you. I apologize.
Point of, yeah, that could
kind of sound like voice
could
of
be
God coming over
an
the
embedded
there you go.
habit there. I just have a question for you or counsel, or I know counsel serves as a parliamentarian. In fairness to the people who just spoke, because the meeting will go on a while before that item comes back again. And my understanding is that we don't take up public comment again on the same item twice, meaning we could have removed it earlier and asked them to wait around to speak at the end, or we could have done it the way you did it, which was good, to allow them to speak and not have to wait around. But I don't believe there's a second opportunity. I just want to clarify that because there were some questions about our rules that came up earlier.
Thank you.
I don't want to disappoint anyone if my interpretation is correct and they aren't allowed to speak later.
My understanding, and I'll let the county council help correct me or guide me if I'm remembering incorrectly, is that we would not permit folks to speak a second time, but that if we got a new card from some other member of the public who wanted to speak on that item, we would hear from that member of the public at that time.
Under the Brown Act, the board does not need to allow a second opportunity to comment on the same item.
That being said, we could allow someone who has not yet spoken the opportunity, if they show up, to speak to the item when it is finally heard on the board agenda?
Yes, at the discretion of the board, yes.
Okay, thank you. That would be my intent. Yes, Mr. Yeager?
Yes, well, just to throw out something else, just because we've heard it and it's on everybody's mind and they're here, what about the idea of moving it to the very first item that we have for discussion, so it's fresh in our minds and we get to ask the questions, and I think it's also a good way of making sure that people don't feel like they need to repeat what they just said because we're here the item now.
That's certainly allowable. We have approved the consent calendar 5-0. We're ready now to move forward with our, quote, regular agenda. If I saw a bunch of nodding heads, then I would say it looks to me like the board thinks that it makes sense to just go ahead and move on to item number 34, since it's the item we've just been hearing about. I'm seeing one nodding head, and I'm seeing two nodding heads, and I'm seeing three nodding heads, and I'm seeing four nodding heads. Forgive me, Madam Clerk, if that's not the way you ordinarily manage to keep track, but I think that's helpful. Then what I'm going to say for the record and for the clerk is, without objection and hearing none, we will now move to item number 34, which is the item for the fairgrounds as the next item on our regular agenda. And then, with board members agreeing, we'll move forward with our agenda in the order that we previously determined. Okay? So, Supervisor Chavez, do you want to lead off? I know you had some questions.
Yes, and really it's an opportunity for some clarification on the record, and I want to make sure we have the appropriate staff here too. Because this is you? All right.
Let me respond, if I may, Supervisor, through the chair. Abe Andrade, CFO and Executive Director, was planning to be here for this item for its discussion. He's on his way over now. He didn't expect it to be pulled and placed at the head of the agenda, but he is able to be here probably within half an hour or so. if you wanted to address any questions to representatives of FMC.
So why don't we do this? Why don't I just ask the questions I was going to ask? If we think we can't answer them, then we'll deal with that. Otherwise, we'll just roll. Is that okay with everyone? So, so part of what I wanted to be able to address, and again, if you can't answer this, that's okay, is that there were some issues raised by the public relative to an agreement that we started to make, and then we reneged on an agreement, not we, I think the FMC Corporation, relative to an increase in rent. And I don't know if you can answer that question, or if there were other issues that were raised you feel like we should just respond to. And let me also just say to my colleagues, one of the things that we had been looking at for the FMC site as a policy direction was, where appropriate and where possible, to start to increase the rents there. And I think we had a series of discussions about that as a full board, and we agreed to that. So I'm not suggesting that we're not trying to have the most appropriate rate of return for our public asset, but I'm really just asking about the issue that was raised as to whether or not we were in fact in agreement and then not in agreement.
Bruce Knopf, Asset and Economic Development Director, failing to have given you my name at the beginning of my comment. I really have not been involved in those negotiations. From the information that I've gotten, my impression is that there may be some misunderstanding between the parties. There has been a change in the position of executive director within the last 30 to 45 days, so that may be contributing to that miscommunication. But I don't believe that my understanding is that there has not been an agreement that was reached and then reneged. I think that a probably more accurate explanation would be a miscommunication.
Okay.
But Abe would be the better person to speak to that.
Okay. So,
and I do understand that there is a meeting scheduled this afternoon between Abe Andrade, the CFO, and Chris Stiles, the former operator of motocross. Abe reported that to me.
so are negotiations then therefore ongoing?
Yes.
Okay.
That is my understanding.
Okay, well, that gives me a different perspective on whether or not we should be discussing this then, because if those negotiations are ongoing, then we should let those negotiations continue.
Can I just interject?
Please.
Is there anything, if we continue with the staff recommendation to adopt this schedule that's been presented to us, does that in any way preclude an amendment coming forward if negotiations between the parties result in an agreement? Couldn't the Board of Supervisors still take that up separately as a ratified amendment to this plan?
Well, and it may be helpful to just clarify a little bit of what this exact action is. So the FMC, which is governed by a separate board, really would be the entity that would be entering into the agreement related to this item. And so what's before the board is, as part of FMC's agreement with the county, is for the board to approve an overall budget and business plan. And of course, that gets modified. It's really kind of a more big picture plan. So this board won't see and approve the actual contract that's at issue.
No, but what I'm getting at is the contracts are theirs. The business plan we have a right to approve.
Right.
And I think we all know, I mean, going back to when Supervisor Yeager and I were on FGOC years ago, that FMC has been encouraged to try to increase revenue, because at one point they walked into committee, Supervisor Yeager will recall, as I do, and threw up their hands and said, we're out of here, we're quitting, we're insolvent, we can't proceed. And that's not good for anybody, any of the people who are out there, if there's no management entity, because they can't make ends meet. So I'm just getting at, if we can move forward, can they, when they feel they have a contract, if and when, they may never, but if and when they have an additional contract, come back, and we can request them as part of an action day to come back specifically so that we can ratify any amendments to this anchor tenant plan, if
I think
that's what it's called.
The board can certainly ask FMC to come back with any significant changes in the business plan.
Right. I mean, the FMC is technically a separate agency, so their board approves their budget. We have, as part of our contract, requirement that they come back and show us their budget and give a report back to the board on a regular basis, because obviously the county has great interest in the operation. So what you're doing today does not inhibit or impede them from negotiating a contract and approving it themselves and then reporting it back to the board.
Which is, excuse the interruption, Supervisor Corday, which is to say, even if a contract were satisfactorily negotiated, it might not necessitate any amendment to the plan.
Sure.
That is correct.
Depends on cost.
Just want to underscore that for everybody.
Right.
Thank you. Supervisor Cortese, are you still?
Yeah, I would like to actually move the item just with the direction to FMC that we would like to have come back to us any changes to their anchor tenant plan or schedule that they've submitted, subject to the ongoing negotiations that we've been told are occurring with the motocross folks.
And I'm going to ask the clerk to please post the voting panel on our screens, but I'm going to ask for a clarification on the motion. Come back to our board as a matter of information or for approval?
As a matter of information.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Cortese and a second by Supervisor Yeager. The motion is to approve the recommended actions on item 34 with respect to the Fairground Management Corporation, but with direction to FMC to return to this body on an informational basis with any changes that arise as a result of this negotiation. Do I have it fairly and accurately captured, Supervisor?
Yes, you do.
All right. Then I'm going to ask all members of the board to please vote on the screen. And then I'm going to say thank you very much and ask the clerk to tally the vote and display the results. And that motion passes 5-0. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you very much to all of you who came. I think it is hopefully a little bit clearer that while we are approving the plan, that does not provide any absolute disposition as to the contract, which is a subject that will continue to be negotiated between FMC and the various participants in the contract. Fair enough? All right. Thank you once again. All right. That gets